Hey everybody, I'm Nick Layton.
And I'm Leah Bottima.
And we're the hosts of Were You Raised by Wolves?
Each week we try to make the world a kinder, nicer place.
Well, that's the idea, at least.
I mean, we try.
Have you ever wondered what to do if you're ghosted?
Or what to do when a friend asks you to borrow money?
Or the proper way to eat Cheetos?
You know, the big questions.
So please find Were You Raised by Wolves wherever you listen.
You're listening to Heritage Radio Network.
You're listening to Heritage Radio Network. HRN is food radio supported by you. Learn more at heritageradionetwork.org. Culture and Flavor is a podcast about food and culture centered in Black and Indigenous foodways. Hosted by myself, Zella Palmer, right here in New Orleans, Louisiana. Each episode features high vibrational conversations with cultural bearers, chefs, farmers, scholars, barbecue pitmasters, and more. Where there is flavor, there is history. Join me on Culture and Flavor and all of my guests as we share stories that will have you praise dancing, cooking, conjuring, and inspiring your culinary journey. Hey y'all, welcome to another season of Culture and Flavor with Zella Palmer. I'm so excited to be back. I'm so excited to invite some of our new guests and, just prepare for this season. And this summer, I had a special experience with Chef Toya Boudy, and I'm just so excited to talk about it with her. But first, let's just talk a little bit about who Chef Toya Boudy is. Chef Toya specializes in putting a unique twist on New Orleans-style dishes and cooks with a Southern flair. As a native New Orleanian, she started honing her culinary skills at a young age and used her talent to kickstart a successful career. As a culinary authority on Cajun and Creole cuisine, she enjoys bringing creativity to the kitchen and teaching people how to take a piece of New Orleans back home with them. Her journey from YouTube videos to being featured on the Hallmark Channel reminds us that you can show up authentically as yourself in the food industry. Her latest cookbook, Cooking for the Culture, is a testimony to her life growing up in New Orleans. Cooking for the Culture gives us a glimpse into the real New Orleans, and no one does it better than Chef Toya Boudy. Welcome to Culture and Flavor, my dear friend Toya.
Thank you for having me, Zella.
Yes, indeed. I'm so excited to have this conversation with you, but let's just start talking about your journey, because I've watched it from afar and kind of, been part of this journey with you. And I just want, our listeners to hear about your journey.
Yeah, well, I started cooking around the age of about 8 or 9. And that's like a landmark because of me being in 3rd grade and Latrice Pinkins coming over. And she came over when my dad was offshore and my mama was in the midst of her 2 shifts that she worked at the hospitals. And she was hungry. My mama didn't wake up until like around 7 because she had a 7 to 11 like shift that she did. And I was like, look, Latrice is hungry. And she was like, well, feed her, like fix her something to eat. And I walked back out because I woke up out of sleep, which was a huge, please don't ever do that unless you could get got, So yeah, that was, now as an adult, I understand it, but I went in the kitchen and I chopped up some potatoes and I fried them in a cast iron skillet. And I remember Latrice Pinkins so well in that moment because she was like me, like she knew how to cook at that age. And she told me, she said, I salt and pepper my potatoes before I put them in the grease. And I was like, what? I ain't never heard nothing like that. and we seasoned them and I remember thinking, that's all right. That's okay. So that's my landmark of when I started cooking. And it just went on for years without anyone knowing. And I remember when I graduated high school, my mama was like, you need to go to school for culinary arts. And I was like, all right. I went to Delgado for a hot beat. And then right after that, like that first semester, I dropped out. And I took a couple years off, and then I was working one day at this doctor's office, and this girl, now I always find it very interesting that two types of, well, one particular zodiac sign is always near me during a transition, and it's a Capricorn. My oldest sister is a Capricorn, the one who always has guided me and who even took me in. I got expelled one year and she took me in to live with her for the rest of the semester since, I was out of school, So we went on a lunch break run and she stopped at this community college called Nunez. And I was like, okay, I'll sit and wait for you to finish. And she called me up to the window and she threw a piece of paper down and a pencil. And she said, here, fill this out. And I was like, what is this? And she said, it's an application. You're going to culinary school. And I was like, oh my God. And I just followed her naturally as that we had a big sister, little sister relationship. So I just kind of followed. And I mean, that was one of the most pivotal moments of my life where things really started to shift, me being pushed back on that culinary track, because the reason why I had to be pushed, because I didn't know it was a gift. I thought, in New Orleans, in our family in particular, the men and women knew how to cook. Men and women knew how to grill. I didn't grow up with gender roles in a house, so to speak. I saw both of my parents fixing food for each other. So I didn't, it's kind of like in our household, like how most women will tell their daughters, well, if you want to get married, you have to learn how to cook, you have to know how to clean. My mama and my daddy was more like, you got to eat, right? Like, how else you going to eat? You're going to use all your money on fast food. Nothing's wrong with fast food, but if you don't have the money for fast food, I mean, you could take $7 and have smothered chicken for a couple of days. So that was the mind, that survival. Food was more like a survival need, to me. So I didn't know it was a gift. So fast forward a little bit more. It took me 14 years to finish culinary school, a 2-year program. Because I was in and out, because I found out around 26 that I had all these artistic gifts, like the painting and poetry and stuff like that too, So I stayed in the world of between poetry, art, and some form of theater. That was my major. It was a dual major that I did culinary arts and food service management in theater. And back then, that was only who all they had? Emerald. They had Emerald and they had Rachel Ray. And I remember my professor, Chef Ruth Risco. And another thing, Leos and Capricorns always pop up somewhere in my story. And I'm telling you, I always tell people, Zella, I only got space for 1 or 2.
I'm laughing, y'all, because I'm a Leo. So,
Y'all are doozies.
We are.
Yeah, and y'all personality, for some reason, they can always get me to do stuff just like Capricorn, and I feel like they have a certain kind of control, Even when we was in Brazil, I told Chris, I said, I told him all the stuff I was doing. He said, you doing all of that? I said, well, I'm with Zella, so that's just doing whatever Zella's doing.
That's right.
Yeah, I'm just gonna follow whatever Zella do. That's it, so that happened, and my professor, she would always tell me, she said, you know what, I think you could do what Emerald's doing. I think you're gonna do it better. No shade, but that was just what she used to tell me, and I used to be like, man, I don't see anything. I don't think I'm a fit. What Rachel Ray is. I'm looking at myself and I'm looking at them and I'm like, I don't know if I'm gonna fit that crowd, and that woman, she was spot on that I was going to end up on TV, and I didn't believe it. So I went straight only to theater, at some point. And then, some time passed and a lot of life happened in between. I started making a name for myself on the art scene in New Orleans, and that was going really good. But then I had a very, very low, deep, hard spot when I was pregnant with my youngest son, Emmanuel. And I left everything alone. I left food alone. I left art alone. I got a job at Capital One because I wanted to hide. I figured no one would see me and know me there, which was true because I'm seeing some of them tellers now and they're like, girl, what were you doing at Capital One? I didn't know. You're not crazy. But I have hard stops, Zella. Like when I'm working, there's no home life at work. And that's how I treated corporate life. Now, artistically, it's a little different, but when I worked in the corporate settings like AT&T, Capital One, like people never knew my home life, so they didn't know what was going on or who I was. And I made sure that I never kind of merged the world. So imagine they're surprised a couple years later, like, girl, home TV, are you kidding me? So I was hiding there, met my husband, was about to get married, and 2 days before the wedding, I get fired from Capital One. And I get fired because, Zella, let me tell you, like I told the manager who was tearing up the day she fired me, girl, I was the worst teller. I don't know why. Come on, Miss Karen, you don't need to be upset about this because I don't know how y'all kept me this long. Girl, Zella, when I tell you I misplaced $50,000 before,
no,
and they had to stay until 8 o'clock, almost 9 o'clock at night. It was outrageous. I knew I was the worst teller. It was not but the grace of God holding me down,
Wow.
And when I came home, I was slumped. You could imagine. My first cooking job, my first job was at 15, cooking at the corner stores. In New Orleans, we have these corner stores that are like, they're like neighborhood hubs. You can go there to get food. You can go there to get anything you want there. Even if you want to do a quick tune-up on your car, like no lie.
Girl,
like,
come on now.
Everything is in this. And I worked at the start of Brothers, the gas station here,
Wow.
So, I've been working since I was 15 and paying my way. So imagine my first time in life not having a job. And I'm looking at a man I'm about to marry like, oh my God, I need to pull my, that mentality of I got to pull my weight, I got to grind, And I never forget, he stood with his hands in his pockets and he looked at me, and we didn't know each other long. We only know each other 6 months by the time we got married, And he looked at me and he said, I don't think you, because I said, I'm going to get another job, whatever, and I'll be back working right after the honeymoon. And he said, I don't think you should do that. I think what do you want to do? Didn't you go to school? Now, we didn't know each other that well. Didn't you go to school for culinary? 2 days before the wedding, he asked me, didn't you go to school for
Oh,
man, this brother has courage. I always tell him that. Say, man,
yes, indeed. Chris is special.
You saw what I was. Anyway, so he said, you need to do what you're great at. You need to, because I was debating because I was in a play. I was in a play at Dillard, and I was in a couple other plays. And at Dillard, the guy over the theater program was telling me that, you can get a scholarship here easy. And he was ironic about my daughter graduating Dillard. He said, I bet we can get you a scholarship to not only to attend Dillard, but for you to live on campus. And you can have one of those apartments you can live with your daughter. That's so crazy that she ended up going to college there.
Shout out to Bethel Clark, director of the theater program.
Ain't that something?
Yes.
Ain't that something that he did that? Because he knew also I was struggling with money. Because I got evicted right after that. So it was so much that it goes to show you want your kids to go to a school where the people aren't just trying to work and make a dollar, where they actually care about people. I'm sure there's a bunch of schools that care about people, but I know personally that Dillard is one of those places that they give a damn, and it's good. I remember that, and I love how they looked out for my daughter too. That was something. But anyway, so after the honeymoon, I go back to school. Zella, I cry every single day coming home from school. On that ride home from Chalmette, because I was so insecure This is why if you're a teacher, be a teacher because you want to be one, not for the paycheck. Because I had so many insecurities because people in the area of academic achievements or just teachers in general have always treated me badly and looked down on me. So, I was always some form of a ragamuffin. If it wasn't from me failing or getting suspended a lot, it was maybe from me being a teenage parent and walking around pregnant at 15, 16. I was always treated bad by teachers. So I had this heavy anxiety to the point that I'll be honest with you, I didn't even start calling myself intelligent until I was like 36, 37. Wow. So because I just felt like I didn't fit that mold that school can put over you, and how people who had achieved a lot academically would treat me or not even want to be connected with me in a way. So that was what I used to cry for, because I felt like I'm in this place where they're not going to accept me. I'm not good enough. I kept thinking that you're never going to get out of school. You'll be going to school the rest of your life. Watch, like all kind of stuff. Right. And the end of the semester hits, and I see one of the girls I went to church with that I'm cool with. I saw her graduate, and she had went back to school. It's a big thing when you get in your 20s and you almost 30, you go back to school, you really do finish, So she was excited about that. And for some reason, Zella, I got so overjoyed, like it was me. I don't even know why I was so overjoyed for her. I was reposting it, whatever. And I rarely repost people and do stuff just because simply, honestly, it's character reasons. I protect my character. That's currency. And whoever I co-sign, people really believe, and I know that. And I take that very personally, my purpose and everything around me, So, and my sister was like, dang, what made you do that? Y'all not that close, huh? And I said, no, I was just so excited for her. Well, this proves that you need to be happy about people getting something, even if you think you'll never get it.
That's right.
You need to be happy, because guess what? That next week that inspired me, I thought, you know what? Let me stop being a whiny baby and just go to the office to find out what classes I have to take next semester. And then I'll see how long I got and whatever. Girl, I walk in there and they're doing these blank stares at the computer and keep looking and squinting and looking and squinting. And it's making me nervous. And I'm thinking, I told you, you're going to be here the rest of your life. Anyway, so she says, let's walk to the dean's office. And she prints out a paper and she shows the dean lady the paper, and she's talking and she looks at the computer and she looks at me and she said, you're supposed to be graduating with this graduating class this May. And I said, what? When she told me that, she said, you've taken literally every culinary class that you can take. Obviously, I was gone for 14 years. So I jumped up so high, my glasses flew off my face and they broke. And as soon as they broke, when I picked them up, I was going through the hallway to go try to get my cap and gown. And God said very clearly, your vision will never be the same. Those glasses had to break. And when I tell you that moment, I never, people who flunk in and out of school, and I was one of them at one point that thought, school ain't, school ain't that much. I mean, I just, maybe it's not for me. It's not whatever. What is it really going to do for my life? Even though you see it doing something for somebody else's life, you, for some reason, because I was one of them, took on a thought that it's not going to do anything for me. Like, what's going to help me? Nothing's going to help me. Let me tell you what, that's how I got my first culinary job. In the interview, I mean, it's professionally. In the interview, he said, you know what, Toya? I see that you invested in yourself, so I don't have a problem investing in you. I was like, are you kidding me? Do you mean to tell me that printed piece of paper just proved a point to you? Girl, changed my world. I thought it could happen for everybody else, but I didn't think. It was just the power of worth. And then after that, I had my YouTube channel. After I was teaching these entertaining cooking classes, and talking about New Orleans history connected to the food and stuff like that. And then after that, that's when the people don't realize. People expect that you should have thousands and a blue check in order to get noticed by Food Network. But let me tell you something. I had well under 5,000, had to be about 2 or 3, if that producers from Food Network were finding me. And they were reaching out to me.
Let's talk about that, Toya. You started to get really excited and talk to us a little bit about how the Food Network reached out to you. But I want us to go back to your YouTube channel, because that's the first time I really saw you. And a lot of people first saw you was on YouTube.
Really?
Yes.
That's crazy. I had no clue.
Yes, indeed.
Get out of here.
That's right.
I had no clue that you first saw me on YouTube.
Yes.
Ain't that something? After I graduated, I was like, okay. So I just, for some reason, before I never had the actual courage to run after food TV. But again, since my glasses were broken, I had a new fire under me, and I felt like, you know what? I saw an ad about Hell's Kitchen, coming down here to cast and stuff like that. And I went out, and it was one of those moments where, like, if I forgot that I had it, I remembered in that moment, because when I was standing in line in the quarters for the Hell's Kitchen thing, producers walked past me and they kept double taking. And they kept double taking. And I knew, I said, oh, they must see something. Then they pulled me up, and then I got pretty far in the process. And then after that, I thought, oh, they said that we need copies of your ID. They're about to start doing plane tickets. Well, it got close to the day when we're supposed to be leaving. And I was like, let me text the PA to see, like, what's up? And I texted him, and he sent me a text back, which is the worst thing to get via text, with a smiley face or something at the end, like, keep in touch, He said, we decided to go another way. And not many things, my daughter has seen me break down, cry in a way where she had to console me. This had to be the first time. I'm not lying. So it was a lot for me to get turned down right out the gate. And then when I finally stopped being depressed, I remember I walked out of the bedroom, and I told Chris, I'm ready to start my own show.
That's right.
I'm not waiting for nobody to give me nothing. I'm gonna start my own show. So that's what I did. I started my YouTube channel, and we used to just do it in the kitchen, as best as we could. We was learning our way through it, And then after that, I had that cooking job where I was teaching and stuff like that. So that was like all prep, right? The YouTube was prep, and then me cooking in front of strangers, up to like 60 something people every day of the week, almost. It was prep and massaging me for the stage. And what's funny about that is that the first day I decided to take the job, I had to sit through Kevin Belton, who's on Channel 4. We worked together at the time. And, the first day I had to sit through his class to see if I wanted to do it. And at the end of the class, I went up to him and I told him how I liked it. And he looked at me, and it was one of those moments where I knew that he was being hosted by an angel, because he looked at me and he said, this is a vehicle for you. That's all this is. And mind you, we never have deep conversation. Even after we got to know each other, we never had deep conversations. That was the only time he had got really deep. That's why I said he was hosted that day. They say that, angels can drop on people. You got to be careful. You never know who you're treating badly. And he told me that, and I held on to it, because I was always afraid, Zella, of being stuck in the kitchen. Yeah. Because I knew that my message, I knew there was a reason why when I walk in, people pause. I knew it was something to do with my purpose. And I just, I knew I had a message to get out. And after doing that for a while on YouTube, Food Network people started reaching out, producers. Now, I didn't take every show that came to me, though, because I started studying the people, the shows people had. I started studying the background, because obviously, with wanting to act and stuff, I always wanted to direct. So I look at how they build backstories of the shows. So I was meticulously studying these shows to see what happens to this person, what happens to the winner, what happens to the runner up, what happens to this person, and how far do they go after. And I caught on to something very, very, very smart. I caught on that it's better to be as seen on instead of being the winner of a certain show on Food Network. That's what I caught on. Because I said, people who were as seen on, they do better. The people who win on Food Network, they seem to be a little bit more stagnant. And when I caught on to that, I said, oh, okay. So I need to pick my shows according to, who will be better suited to aid how I want my character to be displayed. So I chose Guy's Grocery Games when it came to me, because I liked the way he did everything. And I felt like, I don't know everyone's experience with him, but mine was amazing. The set, how people handled things was just flat out amazing, and after that, it was show after show after show. And then I finally made it to Food Network Star, And after I got to Food Network Star, I got cut, which was a very heavy process. I tell everyone, if you're going on a show, you cannot go on a show and just think you're just going to go on a show. You need to go on a show with a motive, with an intention, and a direction, and you don't let that go. You know how a dog worries a bone? You can't let it go, because if you do, you will get lost in the production process. Meaning the interviews, the whatever, and how things could twist, how they try to make you talk smack about someone else. You couldn't get me doing that, and you couldn't get me doing that. And even when at one point, girl, I got smacked in the neck really hard on camera. They even made a GIF out of it. And I got smacked in the neck with a sheet pan by a guy who was about 6'4". So we were running across the kitchen, because the kitchens are ginormous. They're not as small. The camera makes them seem compact, but it's actual, like almost like a half of a gym room. It's huge, And I got smacked, and they cut this part out that the guy kept being concerned about me. He would stop cooking. And we have a time. They don't play. If they say 25 minutes, they don't care. You're stopping, and they cut that part out. And I remember when they were interviewing me, they kept asking me in different ways how I felt. And I kept repeating the same thing I was saying, because I know that they have the power to chop, cut, put, whatever. And if you keep those things in your mind, your character can be displayed properly, which led to another thing, the Hallmark Channel,
When that Hallmark Channel came out, let me just say this to my listeners. When that Hallmark Channel came out, I was just behind the watching on TV, and just like rooting for her, because, she authentically showed up as herself. I'm sure I don't know if you've received pressure, and I want you to talk about that from, to conform to a certain standard of how Black women are supposed to look. And, just seeing you were so New Orleans, and just, just the nails, the tats, the hair. I was just like, look at my sis. I was like, yes, go. I was so proud of you. And on the Hallmark Channel, come on now.
And you know what? I did have and this is going to be very funny. You probably wouldn't expect this, but you would expect it, but in comparison to Hallmark, you'd be like, what? But Food Network was the place that they had an issue with the way I looked, with certain things. Like, can we flatten her hair? Don't put red lipstick. Don't do this. Don't do that. Like, it was always something like that, and it was a time frame. That's why I don't have any salt on any cuts for that, because I get it. It wasn't all the way in style, so to speak. you know, to have someone super black. Now it's okay. Obviously, everybody wants the blackness to look like, you know, whatever. But with Hallmark, honey, they let me be who I was. Like that. I literally called Cameron Killer Cam on camera. Like, you know, like, and then I had to send him obviously the Killer Cam reference of the rap, the hip hop song, so he could see this is who I'm calling you. But, you know, like, they were okay with what I looked like. If you notice, if you look back, because the competition was the best home cooking, they actually found me from my YouTube channel too. And I was literally about to die in the hospital when they reached out. And one of the times I came to consciousness, I had meningitis. And Chris said, guess what? Hallmark reached out. And I guess he figured that would make me wake up. But, you know, obviously it didn't. But I was, you know, whatever. And then as I got better, you know, by the time I got better, I was getting on a plane the next day. So I don't even remember. And he, you know what? He just asked me about a memory around that time. He said, remember when you did this? And I said, a lot of those memories from that time around when I had meningitis, I can't remember anything. But I just remember the day before going to Hallmark and knowing that I just found out I was pregnant with the youngest daughter, Bina. And I was like, oh no, we need another house. We can't fit everybody in this. We can't fit everybody in this, you know? so I went out there, and I'm not going to lie. Zella, it was like the path was like candlelit by God. Everywhere even people, competitors, this lady, Kelly, she was competing with me as well. And Kelly Wolf. And she saw me, and she was competing with me, and she saw me in a hallway at the hotel, and she said, let me tell you something, you're gonna win. And I said, oh, that's nice, you know, just thinking, oh, that's interesting. I'm like that as a competitor. I've never experienced someone being like that towards me. And she said, you're going to win, just watch. I saw it. And I was like, okay. And then I'm sitting in a chair again during filming, and one of the people from the set, from high up, comes up to me and says, you need to get comfortable in that chair. And I was like, oh, okay. You know, and all of those things happened before I won. And I'm telling you, like, after that, they used to hold that competition every year. After I did it, they stopped. And it just started bringing me out a couple times a year, as much as I would be able to, you know, be mobile, especially being pregnant and a new baby and whatever. But, you know, they didn't limit anything. And each time, if you look from the beginning to the last episode, I got more tattoos. Nails got longer. Hair got bigger. Like more tattoos. Like one time, one of the cameramen said, did you get more tattoos? Like, you know, because my MO was always that. Even if I wore straight hair off camera, on camera, I'm always going to have a look that kids can look at and be like, Ma, that lady's hair looks like mine. Yes. Like, I know what it felt like to not see someone that looked like me on TV doing what I'm doing. You know, even for young boys who people tell them that, you know, you get tattoos, you're not going to be able to do anything professionally. That's a lie. You know, you can get whatever you want to get. If your character, let me tell you something. My gifts, what does the Bible say? My gifts will make room for me and bring me before great men. Like, your gifts are always going to make room for you, player. Like, no matter what you're doing, you just got to do it right.
Let's talk about publishing. You know, you've got 2 books out. Your latest one, Cooking for the Culture. I would love for you to also talk about the behind the scenes of Cooking for the Culture, because you got some pushback from your publisher about your book cover.
Well, what they were nervous about, I completely understood. It was, they didn't know how it was going to be received. And you know how it is, you know, with the social media and stuff like that, man. These people could be having good intentions on letting me be free. And then some blogger can grab it and be like, so you're just going to make fun of what? This is a black person writing it. What are you talking about? But I understand how everything can be flipped. Like, we see it often with people online. You're just like, how could you flip it that hard? Like they were trying to do a good thing, but at the same time, they're afraid of what the backlash could be, or if any people who may have been white that would have a problem with it, because it would rub both sides,
Just to give some context to our listeners, you were holding a slice of watermelon, correct?
Yep. I'm holding a slice of watermelon and I'm gripping it really tight. I have, it's my arm with all of my tattoos showing, and my nails are heavily decorated in a way that someone will probably call quote unquote hood, and I'm gripping the watermelon. And the premise behind me gripping the watermelon was because I decided that I was going to take it all back. If you use that watermelon that's majestic, grows up into soil that's mixed with sand up to like 85%, and it's big, juicy, watermelon, this majestic piece of fruit that could hydrate you and feed you at the same time and heal you even, and they would give that to travelers when they're traveling across the deserts and stuff like that. And that's, you're going to make fun of that, and like the caricatures and stuff like that, calling it nigger candy. No, it's not going to mock me. Fried chicken isn't going to mock me either, which is why I put a recipe in the book that says that's fried chicken and watermelon jam, because I need for all of those things to be dropped. I'm not, you make fun of those things. I say it's equivalent. It's equivalent to making fun of someone for having a 2-parent household.
Well, now we know why watermelon is, was stereotyped, and why they put us out there looking crazy, back in the day. It's because they were afraid of us, after Reconstruction, being self-sustainable and opening up businesses, because watermelon, was a lucrative business, so there you go.
Yeah, and it's just to make you feel lowly about what you crave, and you crave that because that comes from the land that you're from. What are you talking about? Like, don't, those things. And I got that idea from teaching these unapologetically Black educated classes, like online through Reconstruction.us. I was teaching with them. And I wanted to create something fun at the end of my class. Fun fact that you didn't know this was African. Yeah. So I did that. Yes. I sung the jingle and I recorded it and I dropped it into the editing process. And I went far, Zella. I was talking about watermelon. I was talking about mathematics. I was just going in, and it was just so beautiful to see these families, because it wasn't just kids that would take these classes. Their whole family would participate, so I would tell them, I said, now that you've made this food, because it had tutorials to go with it along with the history lesson, now that you've made this food, close your eyes, think about your ancestors. You're eating history on a plate. Look what had to happen in order for these collard greens to taste this good and get to you now.
Right.
We didn't just make this up. This isn't just for Thanksgiving. You need to be in Thanksgiving when you're eating it, though. Child. Yeah. In and out November.
Right. And so Cooking for the Culture really has taken off. And then this summer, you took New Orleans to Brazil. Right?
Zella.
Let's talk about that.
Yo, Zella, let me tell you something. There is certain people that I have a connection with a certain way, even if we don't talk often, that I think, I'll do that for them. I'll do that just because they're in it or involved. I'll do that, and I'll make sure I represent well. And Zella's one of those people. Oh, when I saw the email asking about the Brazil thing, I looked at it and I thought, no way. And then I kept reading down, and when it said we were referred to you by Zella, and I was like, oh, all right, okay. And I told Chris, I said, Chris, look at this. Zella's doing something. They got a thing, So it wasn't at that point. I'm just literally thinking about you going. That's why I was just like, oh, okay, because that's just the way I work. that I have to, in order for me to jump into anything, God makes sure there's a connection for me to walk in the room. Because God knows that I'll just stand outside. I ain't going in there. I don't know. No. I'm telling you, that's why Chris had to meet me in 5th grade before he met me later on. Like, you know, like I don't know why I'm like that. I'm just very apprehensive until I feel safe with someone that I feel like, you know, oh, this is protected, whatever this is, you know, because I don't just take any opportunity, you know, because I know that life and death and growth and demise is connected to opportunities, and you got to be careful, you know. So we went to Brazil, and when I tell you, it was mind blowing. It was mind blowing. I was in awe the entire time. Like, I was so nervous leading up to it, but I had the best group of friends of chefs that would just like encourage me and be like, girl, this is going to be cool, you know, because you think about stuff in the span of like, you go from, my max was always 200 people, you know. I never go over that because, you know, past that I would have to have a staff, and for me that's a little nerve-wracking thinking about having people go, you know, take my stuff and then move with it. That makes me nervous. And I had more control. But with this, I mean, it was wonderful. You have sous chefs, you know, you have the best products. I'm telling you, my body functioned 10 times better eating all of that natural, you know, just stuff not wrapped in preservatives and stuff like that in Brazil. Like, the food was absolutely amazing. And the feel of the people, like, I kept saying when I got home, Zella, I said, you know, let me tell you, these people in different, something in the in the U.S., something is stripped. Because in Brazil, girl,
because good energy is a language, and and when you have good energy, you can speak each other's languages easily. You know, you can understand each other.
And that's what it felt like, Zella. Like, the stuff, even when I was talking to the team at the booth, and my dish was, it was marinated flank steak with this shrimp and andouille. They made my andouille from scratch, y'all.
Y'all, it was fire. It was fire. That andouille sausage, I wish we could have brought it back. I really wish we could have brought it back.
I wish. I've never tasted something that good. And it was the andouille and shrimp cream, because some of the shrimp and the andouille was blended up in the cream, and it had grilled shrimp. It was just so good. And watching the people line up for my booth all day, you know, Thomas, my sous chef, he said, I've never seen a response like this at a booth.
No.
I was like, what?
Yeah, it was incredible to watch. It was incredible to watch. And she had hundreds of people lined up for her Bayou Surf and Turf dish. And I mean, it was her personality, the love that she put in the food, and just the team. It was good vibes. And we were, you know, out there playing second line music. We brought Taste of New Orleans with us. It was fun. It was fun.
It was. Thomas is actually, we fed. Well, by the time he stopped counting, well, it was daylight when he counted, and he said, that's 2,500. It was the end of daylight.
Wow.
He said, because each pack has 1,000 in it, and we went through 2.5 packs. Yeah. So, you know, and that was before we ate, because at the end of the night, Zella's a trooper, y'all. I mean, Zella stayed there the whole time. And she said, I don't know how you not tired. But I was high on adrenaline. Like, I could have ran through a wall. It was ridiculous. But the people, oh my God, like when Zella said the energy and the language, like I would talk to them and they would start crying with me. They could really feel everything that I was feeling. And then the most beautiful part about it, Thomas sent me a message on WhatsApp some days after I got back, and he was telling me what everyone was saying. And he said, he just wanted to say, he said, your work ethic, like I admire it. He said, most chefs would have just left us there. And he said, that's what they normally do. They don't work with us, you know, and stuff like that. And I was just like, oh my God, like,
you wouldn't even take a water break. You wouldn't even take a water break. I'm like, sis, it's hot out here. Take a water break. And you're like, no, put me in the team. Put me in the team. I'm ready to play, coach. I'm ready to play.
Zella is my common sense outside my body. I swear.
Because she was ready. Y'all should have seen her. She had her fashion glasses on. She had a hat on that said Jefe de Cocina. She was ready.
Man, that hat just stopped smelling like wood. Can you believe that? I would let you, man. You were my youngest son. He would come up and he would just randomly smell it like, man, it still smell like that. I said, I know. That's what it smell like out there. But the sight to see, like, I don't know if I pray that everyone gets a chance to go to Brazil to this festival because it's outrageous. I mean, to watch whole animals get roasted and the energy, the chanting of the music, like it was just so spiritual. Like I'm just forever grateful for this opportunity. That was a good look, Zella.
Thank you.
And if you don't have a friend that speak a couple languages, please get one. Because
yes,
I would not have eaten if it wasn't for Zella.
I speak a little Portuguese, y'all. I can get us by.
She speak a lot of Portuguese. So talk about little Portuguese. At one point, I'm just like, girl, just take the menu. I don't care. And, I'm not going to eat or do anything. So,
oh my God.
So if you don't learn languages, please get you a friend who knows some. Because, geez.
And it's the people that we also met. You know, I just want to shout out Bachi, Amy, who are going to be coming on my show. They will be guests on the show because they're such incredible women. We were asked to curate the festival this year to uplift Churrascada Festival in Sao Paulo to, just really, give kudos and the flowers to Black women who have always been the core and the foundation of our food industry, from our mothers to our aunties to farmers, etc. So Bachi represented Brazil. Amy brought chefs from Ghana and Nigeria, and then I was able to bring the lovely Chef Toya Boudy, and she killed it, and I know I chose well. So I'm grateful for that because you definitely represented the city of New Orleans, and you were the first African-American woman to be a part of that festival, and there were thousands of people there. So it was amazing.
Man.
And just the side dinners, and the conversations and the community that really, invited us in. I'm really, I'll always love Brazil, and it'll always have a special place for me. And I'm so glad that you trusted me, because sometimes, we bring fear into situations, but I'm glad that you trusted me and got on a plane with me and was like, I'm going, sis. I'm going.
Yeah, man. I trust you for real. And that's funny. I didn't, I made the joke about the Leo thing, but I thought about that. My professor is an early Virgo cusp Leo, my professor. Mm-hmm. But she has full on. When I talked to her daughter, I said, she's in her, I think she's close to her 90s now. And I'm like, no, 80s, late 80s. I was like, wait, your mama is almost a Leo? That's crazy that she's the only teacher, professor that's been able to whip me into shape. And my mother's a Leo. Which is very interesting. Very interesting. All of that stuff really means something. The fact that I would trust you in that magnitude, because when you see it, you think, go to another country with who for what?
I know, and I have to thank Chris too, because Chris was also rooting you on, no, go.
Yep, he was, because I can be, I can be apprehensive, which is why God makes connections like that before I jump into something. But I mean, you have to think about your character with what that displays in order for someone who is apprehensive to trust. That says a lot. That you should think about that for sure, because I definitely trusted you, and I'm glad I did.
How important is it for you to really lift up the city of New Orleans and Creole cuisine? I'm just curious, because that seems, when we were in Brazil, just that Bayou Surf and Turf, you mix in Creole, Cajun. How important is it to you to bring this to the world?
It's extremely important. It's a part of my mission. It's a part of the lines in my thumbprint, Zella. It's it's a part of the mission. And that means more to me than anything else in this life, my purpose, what I was put here to do. And, what's very interesting is that, when you look around and you see the way people kind of dumb our city down to being parties and booze and alcohol, and stuff like that, like that's all they kind of dumb our city down to. Is to that, but the people here are so rich. There's a reason. Let me tell you something, girl. Every city, state I go to, beyond 4 days, I'm itching to be back in New Orleans. You want to know why? Let me tell you, it's the feeling of, can I speak freely?
Yep, speak freely.
Okay. It's a sugar or shit environment here, It's like, who mean, if the guy on the corner is just crazy and mumbling, and if the other one might bust you upside your head. It's very easy. People are so like, they're intuitive. It's close to Brazil, but it's obviously different. But, I feel safe. Because I can read and I can understand the people here, even down to like, I was joking online last night, but it was true. I've gotten in cars with strangers and took rides. Mm-hmm. You can look from the window and look in his eyes. He ain't gonna do nothing. And it just dropped me off places when I was young, I was 19, but still, that kind of thing. And I know I'll have houses in different places, but the people here are it's just unmatched. Yeah. You can tell a lot of heart and a lot of cultures came through these people. And this is a group of people. If you came here, Zealot, this isn't like LA or New York. If a man start beating you up or something like that in public where somebody ain't going to jump in. I wish you would try that in New Orleans.
Big facts. Big facts.
I wish
big
you
facts.
would.
Big and just stand there and watch it. I'm always like, wow, you just literally stood there and watched somebody, get violated.
What I said, huh? You see what I said? That ain't him.
I know.
That ain't him.
I know.
They've been and bust somebody upside their head real quick, man.
Listen,
with a cigarette still in their mouth. What are you talking about?
Cool.
I'm telling you. Girl. When people make the comments and I'm just like, no, like I know that I'll be living other places. It's obvious that I'll have another place. I was in New York last time and I thought, man, I've got to have a place here. Right. But at some point, I want to get back to that feeling. Yeah. There's a reason why people from New York moved to my book agent was from New York. She moved here.
Yeah. It's a lot of New Yorkers here. Yeah. Oh, don't y'all come moving down here now, making our rent go up, shoot, and our mortgages. Still. Y'all go someplace else.
They'll pay our high.
They're like, ooh, that's a deal. Right.
Yes. And then raise it up. No. Stay where you're at. Please don't leave.
No, New Orleans has always been a vortex, I think. And I think a lot of that has to do with just being a port city, and historically we think of New York, and just the diversity of who comes to New York. But, New Orleans is rooted in Haiti and Cuba and Africa and, indigenous, the Choctaw, the Homas, all of this. I mean, all of these people were here. And it's evident every day, that it hasn't changed as much as other places. And I think that's a beautiful thing.
And the food, we watch people butcher our food online all the time. Now, look, let me tell you something. I tell people when people message me, especially during the quarantine, I would always get messages from people asking me what I thought about what people put in gumbo. And I'm very clear at first, it was a scraps meal, like it was something that was like that. But, obviously, if you want to add tomatoes, I get it. The Creole portion, the Spanish, or whatever. I get it. But, some stuff is just like, sometimes it can be flattering and sometimes it could be like a pirating that's happening.
Yeah. I have a trouble with people thinking that it's tomatoes because historically, if you look at some of the old cookbooks, it was this paprika and and the different seasonings that were in the chorizo and the hot sausage that was put in there that gave it that color. So people inventing, and I understand the creolization evolves, but it also gets dumbed down in this generation, and I agree with you. I have a huge problem with, it's hard to, just let people who are from New Orleans cook, it's okay.
Yeah.
You don't have to do it.
This is the thing. I don't want to be a bully. A food bully, because I don't agree with that. I feel like, look, if all you had was hot dogs or weenies at that time, that's what you need to look. I tell anybody, I'm not saying you need to know how to throw down for like 30 people, but you need to at least know how to smother something. You need to know how to sear something and smother something if you get broke. Like, be careful, like that kind of thing. But I mean, come on. If you got the means, why play with the ingredients like that? Just do it right.
Gumbo is like the Aston Martin of Creole cuisine. There's other things that you can cook that are much more simpler, like barbecue shrimp or chicken Creole. You know what I mean? Do that. Levels, work your way up, and then definitely have someone who is from New Orleans to really teach you how it's made, because you got to understand that there's different gumbos for each ward, and there's also gumbos that are in Creole country out in Lafayette and Opelousas and those places, so it's so many different types of gumbos. So if you're going to get to that point, work your way up to that, and just don't, I was watching that viral video of Coy Leray and her mama making gumbo. Lord have mercy. I was just like, this is just too much. Just stop saying it's a gumbo. Stop saying it's a gumbo. Just say it's stew.
You know what the problem is? No one wants to admit that they're not good at something. And I tell people, or some things aren't their thing. I tell people all the time, well, Toya, it looks like you can do everything. Oh my God. You know why it looks like I can do everything? Because I only do what I'm good at. I don't do stuff that I'm not good at. You don't catch me always baking. And when I'm doing something sweet, it's something very simple. That's not my strongest suit. The most I do with baking is the stuff that I've been teaching Bina, because she likes to do stuff like that. Yeah. Outside of that, I was throughout the cookbook process, it was like, and they weren't even a stickler about how many sweets, because I really only gave them like 2 cakes and maybe bread pudding. Like, I didn't do much sweet because that's my forte. They kind of gave me a lot of creative control. I'll always be grateful for that from Countryman Press. But it's just, if it's not your thing, just leave it that way. Yeah. Like why? Like, why are you doing this? Like, some stuff I feel like is too personal. Yeah. Like, I have an Asian friend who's a chef, and she has a cookbook, and it's amazing. But this is the thing. Certain stuff she was trying to tell me how to do, I'm not going to do that and post that. No, I'm not going to post it. I'll do it, but I'm not going to post it. Yeah. There's some stuff, like, it's just like, once it gets to be like a process, like your gumbo, our gumbo is to somebody's maybe pho or something else, just calm down with trying to act super authentic. That's it. Yeah. That's it. That's the word. You cannot carry the tone of it being authentic. You have to stop that. Yeah. This is what you're making. Okay. But don't say it like it's the real thing and have Zydeco music in the background. Because now I'm about to call out. Because now you're mentioning New Orleans with Zydeco. Right. Now I'm upset because I don't even know how to do those dances. I'm rolling. They play bounce music. Okay. Yes. Something. Something. Not Zydeco. That's a other place.
Yeah, saying New Orleans. Yeah, and then saying this Cajun gumbo in New Orleans. Like, stop. Man.
Or even using our accent. I cannot. Yeah. Girl, I cannot handle it. It's giving pirate. Yeah. So I think in the food world in general, people are just afraid to say what they aren't good at. And I think people have a desperate need for wanting culture, so they grab on to whatever's near them, Yeah.
And it's okay to say you're learning, or just exactly what you were saying, if you like, you got your grandma's recipe or whatever, just say you're learning. You know what I mean? It's okay. But to come out and put it on a menu and then get awards for it and it doesn't look like a gumbo is problematic.
That's wild. That's wild.
And New Orleans chefs can't get any media attention. You know what I mean? So that's where,
girl,
yeah,
that's a whole nother thing. And you know, in our society with food down here, one thing that, and I'm sure there's a bunch of New Orleans chefs who will raise their hand and say, I know what you're saying. Yeah. But it's just like people who come from another country, the people want to highlight them more, not because they're more authentic, but you see, us New Orleanians, we have the stench of slavery, poverty on us. Mm. You know, once they sit, they don't feel guilty looking at us because, like me in my cookbook, I have, you know, peanut butter cookies that I ever talk about how I made it from commodity peanut butter. If I talk about commodity peanut butter, what does that mean? My poverty was under, my house was under poverty. Yeah. And if you're under poverty, how was the commodity? How did we get under poverty? They just gave us new ways of getting rations. We're reminding you. We're reminding them of what was done. So what looks better a lot of times in New Orleans, that's what's so hard for why New Orleans chefs have to work so much harder at times, is because they have to compete with other types of people doing their food. And they want to see them because they feel like, oh my God, it's exotic. They're from where? Oh my God, it's exotic. But what about the locals who've been stirring all their lives? You know, it's a tough battle, but you know, it's something you can win.
And I think, you know, with conversations like these, you know, and us just being, you know, just free and frank, you know, I think that's good. And I think also, you know, what I love to see that's happening in Black foodways is, you know, there's enough room. We have to remove kind of our Western, you know, ideology that only one person can get to the top, right? And there's only one spot available. There's enough for everyone. If you are Nigerian, Ghanaian, Senegalese, Black New Orleanian from the 7th Ward or the 9th Ward or the East, it's enough for everybody. We just have to really push the narrative forward. But these are serious issues that, you know, Black Southern chefs, I've been advocating for them for a long time because, you know, a lot of people do Black Southern food, but, you know, the equity is not there, you know, the equity and representation.
This is the first time I've had this conversation on being recorded. This is the first time I've ever had this conversation. It's the first time I've ever even been given the space to say something of that caliber, you know, because it's just not said. In my last interview with this guy I did on a Porch podcast, and he talked about something, and I said, I don't want to feed, you know how many people in the city of New Orleans, just like documented, it's 300,000 and something. I don't want to feed all those people. Yeah. Do you realize that all of us chefs only really need a solid, maybe at the highest of the craziest volume, 1,000, if that? Yeah. You don't even, all you need is maybe 500 customers. You can't. Restaurants don't serve over a certain amount a day. Why are we not allowing the freedom in our minds to have more than one spot? But then
it's also fear. It's also fear. You mentioned that earlier about fear, and it's you know, the legacies of slavery has done a doozy, you know, and so, you know, just stepping outside of New Orleans, you know, and stepping out of your comfort zone. You know, that is also, you know, sometimes a challenge. You know what I mean? What I've seen just working with people. So if you can continue to be a light like you are, I mean, how many more, you know, Black New Orleanian chefs are going to say, Toya did it. I can do it. Right.
I pray. I pray. And that's what I believe. That's why I keep going. You think sometimes I don't want to blend? You know what I mean? Like, I tell people that often. I understand the people who want to blend. I understand the people who code switch. Yeah. You know, I understand those people. I don't, you know, now if it was my children, I'd say, girl, you don't knock that off. You know, but with somebody else outside of my bosom or my household, like, I get why you do it. It's tough being unapologetically Black. It really is.
Like, I mean, and it's just recent. And, you know, to be honest, I mean, look at the Food Network. You know what I'm saying? What you were saying earlier about, I mean, no, you know, and I don't want to get any trouble for saying that or anything like that. But I'm just saying, you know, it's also just American media. And, you know, we're in this age where you had to be, you know, natural hair. I mean, it's always an attack, right? And so, I think as more chefs, Black and Indigenous chefs in particular, come out as their authentic self, and just make sure that they demand that kind of respect. I think there'll be more that a generation after that won't look at, the food industry as being, as it was before, because we can change it. I do believe we have the possibility to change it. And I think social media has a lot to do with it. I mean, just in the fact that, we're like, nah, I'm going to do my own show on YouTube. I mean, 10, 20 years before when, technology wasn't even existed, that wouldn't have been possible. You know what I mean?
Yeah. But, it's a combination of two things, because people always are very quick to lean into the being real. Yeah. But they don't realize that's why I bring up, I studied shows. I did this. I had classes where I could take, I remember one time I was taking a master class for acting, because I knew it would help me with public speaking during the quarantine. I knew it would help me convey and be confident and be a certain way on how to channel my presence, that kind of thing. I was legit taking classes and pouring into myself. Also, I was healing. I was healing. Yeah. So I'm not walking around, with that ancestral feeling of somebody's going to steal my good recipe.
So true. Come on now. Yes. Come on. Listen. A lot of this has to do with trauma. I'm just saying, a lot of this has to do with PTSD.
Man, so many chefs, so many people looked at me when I first started out, Zella, and was frowning upon me I saw them putting out subliminal comments on social. I'm never going to give away all my stuff for free. Never. And then now they looking at me now. See? Look like. See, it's the thing between giving something away for free, and there's a difference between giving something away for free and then sowing a seed. I was sowing the seed.
But you were sowing the seed, but we have to remember, I mean, I've had chefs come to me and say, I was working at X, Y, and Z hotel in the quarter, and I thought that I would get a raise, and I shared with them my oyster gumbo recipe, and then they fired me. And now that oyster gumbo recipe now is winning awards, right? So that is, that is what the core reason why a lot of Black chefs keep their recipe, because it has been stolen many times, you know?
Yeah, that's what I was saying about the stolen thing. I mean, you have to, at some point, you have to swing, and, aim for the moon, but really pray secretly that you hit the stars. That's just what you have to do. You have to take that chance. At the end of the day, do you realize, and this is another thing, I tell myself these things, and I've told myself this, you know how many pretty chefs they got? You know how many witty chefs they got? You know how many chefs of wisdom they got? You got to lean into your personal thumbprint,
to your power,
and then let that be the protection.
Just thinking about how this, chef celebrity culture and this kind of capitalist, dog eat dog food industry works, where it's only one space for, a Black chef. And so this fetishization of, the exotic of being Black and Southern, right? And it's just, we have to figure out how to come together, because on one side, Black Southern chefs are not getting recognized. On the other side, African or Caribbean chefs are being pushed also to make gumbo or Black Southern food, because that's more palatable to an American audience, because African food still isn't up there with Asian and fully recognized as a world cuisine. So I think just us figuring out what is our story going to be, how are we going to show up in the chef world, and I want to know your thoughts about that.
I totally agree. That was, I participated in something maybe a couple years back, and you could tell that it didn't feel like he naturally wanted to focus on gumbo or making his own version of gumbo, right? But of course, somebody would probably act like it's taboo if you have a restaurant and you don't serve gumbo, or if you don't serve, a smothered something or whatever. And I think they should just stand firm and be like, fuck you, no.
Yeah.
No, thank you.
That part.
No, thank you.
That
it should
part.
just be that, because, I mean, do you know, someone asked me about fufu. Meaning, like, do you know how many places you could probably get that somewhere that's going to be amazing here? But I mean, it's not something that's popular. You don't see bloggers going to it. You see the bloggers go and get our same food over and over again. I mean, if it's a blogger based out of here, get outside of what our mamas cook, like try to grab some other backgrounds and stuff like that, to try to grab other foods from different people's stories, basically. I think they should also lean in and tell their family story and not think that it's not interesting just because it's in New Orleans. No way.
Right.
That's even more powerful. If your grandmother cooks something very specific and it seems simple, that can be something that's literally highlighted in your restaurant on your menu, and people love eating a story. That's why they like gumbo.
Yeah. Yeah. And, I mean, that this goes into how are we going to show up in the world, and Black folks are not a monolith, globally. Our food is not a monolith. Right? Indigenous food is not a monolith. It is definitely where we have to say, no, this is how I'm going to show up in the world, and I'm going to be authentically myself, whoever it is, but we have got to push hard and learn the power of no and build on our self-care and our self-esteem. And that's why I appreciate you so much, because even the life lessons that you put out on social media, you're always talking to people and really getting into the crux of a lot of the times the fear that we have in this industry has a lot to do with systematic oppression.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. And it's needed.
And the things we tell ourselves, right?
Yeah, it's needed. It's needed. It's needed. Whatever your story is, we need to eat that story. We need to eat your history. And that's just it. That's just it.
That's it. And I'm going to just say this. I'm going to say this about you, Toya. You have tremendous power and light, and I don't say that about everyone. I see it when you walk into the room. I mean, you just bring so much light, joy, personality, and it is so refreshing. And I'm just thinking of all the little Black girls that, are looking up to you, and will one day, as your platform grows, even look up to you more. You have a tremendous story, and I'm so proud of you. So proud. It's always such a joy to talk to Chef Toya Boudy, and I thank y'all for listening to our next season, our current season of Culture and Flavor. I hope y'all tune in for our next episode, and thank you, Toya, so much for joining Culture and Flavor. Culture and Flavor is powered by Simplecast. Thanks for listening to Heritage Radio Network, food radio supported by you. Keep in touch at heritageradionetwork.org.
Hey, it's Francis Lamb, host of The Splendid Table. Every week on our show, we talk about food and cooking and the meanings of food and cooking. We talk with the most interesting people in food about their techniques, their culture, and everything in between. Whether it's about how fried chicken took over the world or how Instagram changes the way people are actually eating. It's a food show where everyone is welcome. Come join us. You can listen to The Splendid Table wherever you get your podcasts.